That's right.
It
Well,
might take a little longer than the MIT grad, but I can teach you how to code. And we know that you're going to learn 10 languages over your career anyway. So,
right.
But yeah, I've done a lot of things that are just like, well, let's change the culture around how we look at people so that we can include more people.
Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by my man, Audley Stevenson, the Odd Man. He'll unpack wisdom and insights from a cross-section of top quality performers in business, media, sports, entertainment, and lifestyle to uncover key elements to help you live your best audacious life ever. So without further ado, here is the Odd Man.
Greetings and salutations, I'm Audley Stevenson, and you've got it locked to another edition of the Audacious Living Podcast. Hands down, the most audacious podcast you'll find on the internet. And it's awesome that you could be here to join us on our journey as we continue our ongoing goal of helping you live your best audacious life ever. As always, I encourage you to connect with us through our social media channels. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram under the handle The Audacious Pod. And then if you head over to Facebook, you can join our community there and simply type in the Audacious Living Podcast in the search engine and immediately connect with us. And hey, listen, if you're watching on YouTube, then you can subscribe to our YouTube channel simply by tapping the notification bell down below, and you are immediately connected. So lots of great ways to be a part of our community. Like, follow, subscribe, share, tell a friend, and let's keep doing our part to keep the spirit of audaciousness flowing. Now, on today's episode of the podcast, we're going to talk and discuss the concept of creating opportunities for others and essentially making a bigger pie. And I'll explain what I mean in a moment. But the example that we'll use to help us understand this concept of making the pie bigger is from the world of the tech industry. And we're specifically going to zero in on a program created by Microsoft back in 2015 that was put in place to provide employment opportunities for underrepresented groups or individuals who wouldn't normally have a chance to get a job as an engineer in a big company. Visible minorities, women are just some of the groups who've taken advantage of this rare opportunity. Now, the program is called LEAP, and its founder is William Adams, and he'll join me here on the Audacious Living Podcast. He's a technical advisor at Microsoft, where he's worked for over 25 years, and it essentially was his vision that led to the creation of the LEAP program, which in turn has opened the door and benefited so many opportunities were created as a result of it. I think my chat with William is an awesome one, and one that I think you'll really appreciate because it's very selfless. He came from the perspective of just wanting to give an opportunity to others, and again, going back to what I said, making that pie bigger for all. So without any further ado, here's my conversation with William Adams. Enjoy. William, it is the Audacious Living Podcast, and I appreciate you for being here, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing great. I woke up this morning and I wasn't dead, so I'm awesome.
Well, the operative word is you woke up, right? So
I woke up. Yeah, every day is a
great.
blessing, right? I mean, it's like, particularly these days, it's like every day you're healthy and your family's happy, and it's like, it's all good.
Well, I look, it's an approach to life as I kind of think of it, right? Like, I think if you have that right approach, you sort of appreciate, the things that you have. It's easier to be thankful for what you have. So
yeah, absolutely.
I'm with you on that. So we're having you here on this episode of the podcast to talk about your technical expertise and your experience and how you're using that experience to create laneways and possibilities for others. So let's start there. You're with Microsoft, right?
Yeah, so I'm currently with Microsoft. I've
Yep.
been there for 24 years, so
Yep.
since 1998.
My goodness.
25 years is coming up the end of this month, end of next month.
You've seen a lot of change in the technological world, I would imagine.
Oh, yeah, and not just Microsoft. I mean, that's just 24 years of Microsoft. Before that, I had a company of my own with my brother for, I don't know, 10, 15 years.
Yep.
So I've been in tech for the good part of 4 decades.
Got you. And is that where you always saw yourself, or I guess when it's been this long?
Yeah, well, it's really funny. When I was in, like, I don't know, 4th or 5th grade, the firemen came to our school, and they, let me try on the fire suit and all that stuff. And the fireman's like, "So, what do you want to be when you grow up?" And I said, I want to have an electronics company. Poor guy. So, you
let him down, William. You let him
down, but I was true to myself. So I've always, and now this was in the days when we didn't even have personal computers. So all I could say was electronics company.
Mm-hmm.
But I've always steered towards tech, if you will.
Got you. So as you watch, and I know I'm talking about tech here, but I want to sort of talk about the transitions that you've seen in the industry. I mean, so yes, you started. We talked about being an electronics store, and everyone wanted to be, Radio Shack or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever it was, but it started to transition. When did you see that? Because I would imagine for a lot of people who were excited as you were going into the industry, they weren't able to keep up with the trends and the changes and the transitions that were happening.
Yeah, I would say in the early days, we're going way back. So in the 70s, 70s through 80s, that was really the birth of what you as an average citizen could possibly get into as a personal computer. It wasn't until, like, let's see, I went to college at 82. So it wasn't until about 1980 that you could actually get like an Apple or a Radio Shack computer, or a Commodore 64 or Atari, these kinds of things that didn't cost you a year's salary, right? And that's about the time that things started to take off for the average person, other than someone that is works at IBM or at an aerospace company or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was the beginning of that was the I would say the beginning of the transition towards the common man in computing. The personal computer really meant that. It's like, yeah, individual families could actually own a computer, only one.
Right.
Not like today, where you've got one in your pocket, one in your hand, one in your face. You got 100.
Yeah. Well, no, it certainly has changed, and certainly from an affordability standpoint, that allows for all these added devices in their homes, and again, so those are just some of the benefits. So talk about your so when you're at Microsoft almost 25 years, as you said. How has your job with Microsoft changed over the years?
When I joined Microsoft, it was so 1998. It was the birth of this thing called XML, which is the equivalent of saying HTML, and it was we were just getting into the whole internet thing. We didn't have AWS and Azure and all these cloud services, all that stuff. There's none of that. Yeah. It was still packaged software, Office, Outlook, Word. And we had the Internet Explorer, the browser, and we were in the browser wars with Netscape.
Netscape, right?
Netscape, what's that? It's that thing nearly tore our company apart, and it doesn't even exist anymore. Now it's all Google Chrome. But at that time, it was all that kind of stuff. Packaged software going into big companies was the bulk of what we did. Now you roll forward to today. Packaged software, we really don't do that anymore. Mostly it's cloud-based services, and you're still selling some specialized stuff into companies, but mostly it's cloud-based software. You might still find a box that has a CD inside, and a big thick manual and all that sort of stuff. It's like, I don't even have a CD drive on my current computer. It's all USB sticks or something like that.
That's right.
So the tech has changed dramatically. the products that we develop has changed dramatically. Your cell phone, you get apps that are either free or at most $1, right? Back in those days, software was hundreds of dollars for a single seat. Visual Studio, the tool I use to do development, it's free. Back then it was maybe $1,200.
Wow.
Peachtree Accounting, and all the Quicken Books, it's a subscription, $50 a month, you're done.
Yeah.
So the switch to a subscription model on a lot of software has happened during that time. The hardware is just off the hook. I mean, I hold in my pocket something that would have been a supercomputer back in the day.
That's right.
And we all hold them.
Yeah, that's right.
And all we're doing is texting.
That's right. That's right.
That thing was way more powerful still than something that launched some men to the moon. And we're texting. So that's the kind of changes that have happened, right? And miniaturization, of course. Everything's just way smaller and therefore more powerful.
And then you've got to be, only certain individuals are able to keep up with those changes. I would imagine that you've seen a lot of people come out of the industry and shift because they couldn't keep up or couldn't handle it, didn't want to be a part of the change.
Yeah, I think there's both. Being at Microsoft, I've also seen a lot of cultural change during that time, and that's dramatic as well. The technical part of it, you have to be a continuous learner, right? Because over the years, every once in a while, I kind of, well, how many languages have I learned and used and all that sort of stuff? And it's like, I've actively used at least 10 languages over the years,
right?
And there's going to be more. You can't settle and go, I learned C, I'm done.
Right.
It's like, well, here comes C#, here comes Go, here comes Rust, here comes JavaScript,
Yes.
And there will be more.
Yes.
And it's like, okay, I got this now. It's all about cloud computing. Well, until it isn't. Now, what about AI? And what about self-driving cars? And what about, blah, blah, blah. So change is constant. And if you don't have an aptitude or desire or an ability to keep on that change treadmill, then you get off, right? Gotcha. And that's not to say that you're less because you get off. It's just a choice. Yes. I choose not to stay on that treadmill.
Gotcha. Yep.
I'm going to do something else that isn't so much change constantly.
Got you.
So you see a lot of that.
Makes sense. So you briefly you mentioned changes culturally. Sort of talk about that, because I think that's what my opening statement, I talked about creating possibilities. That's sort of where you sort of found your lane a little bit.
Yeah, there's quite a lot. So most of my time at Microsoft, I've been an engineering manager, but there's almost half the time I've been there, I've worked on just opening up possibilities for hiring more people. In the earlier days, I was in my engineering team concerned about hiring more women, because at that time, we had in the company, maybe it was 9% women. 9% women in an engineering team would be extraordinary.
Right.
And I was like, well, I've got 12% in my group.
Right.
I'm better than the average. And today it's like 12%. God, that's pathetic. But it was back then, it was dramatic.
Yeah.
And it was a conscious effort I made to say, well, where are those women? You can't just sit on, well, there's just not a lot of women engineers. Like, there are. They're just at the schools you don't look at. They're at Mills College, and we don't go there to recruit. So let's go to Mills College, right?
Right.
So doing stuff like that, or when I was I spent 3 years in India, training our engineers how to be better engineers. And during that time, I got a taste for just doing different things, right? Looking at things differently and saying, at that time, we had a bunch of engineers who would come in from college.
Yep.
And within their first year, they would just leave because they're like, there's no mentoring, there's no learning. It seems like no one cares about me, right? So I changed that. It's like, oh no, you're gonna come to me first for 5 weeks, and I'm gonna train you on how to be an engineer, and more importantly, how to form a network of support, right, for yourselves.
Yep.
That same concept I carried forward to today. 2015, we created this program called LEAP, which is about getting women and minorities into engineering roles. And the foundation of it was the same thing, where it's like, well, first of all, let's get you together and bring you in cohorts so that you're grouped and you have an inbuilt support mechanisms.
Right.
And then
right.
let me work with the engineering hiring managers to show them how to look at talent differently,
Right.
so that they can accept. It's like, yeah, okay, you didn't come from, we always say MIT, is so sad. You didn't come from MIT, but you have life skills that are worth more than just the degree that you got, the CS degree. You were a barista, and you were a darn good barista, and you know customers, and you have customer empathy.
Right.
Customer empathy is important as much as I can teach you how to code.
Sure.
Right.
Got you. That's right.
Well, might take a little longer than the MIT grad, but I can teach you how to code. And we know that you're going to learn 10 languages over your career anyway. So,
right.
You know, but yeah, I've done a lot of things that are just like, well, let's change the culture around how we look at people so that we can include more people. Right. So that was very long-winded.
No. You made some really good points. I think my first thought was, how is that embraced by the company? Because now you're bringing on something that they, weren't doing or didn't identify the need to do or recognize the importance of it, and you're now, because William, what you're essentially doing is you're shifting the culture.
Yes, yeah, and this is the key thing, I think, for me, was to recognize that the task is a culture shift task. It's not just about, and this is where I think a lot of people fall down. It is not a checkbox exercise. It's not go out and hire 100 blacks, right? Which is where a lot of people fall down. It's like, oh, okay, we got 100 done.
We're good,
and within a year, they're gone. It's like, that didn't do you any good. No one learned how to do it. All you did was you drove the bus up to Howard. You told everyone to get on and
get on.
Here you go. You got your 100 blacks. All right, pat on the back, and we're all done this year. Right?
We did our part. Yeah.
We did our part. Well, I thought, no, what you have to do is keep putting people in front of them and saying, look, this is how you assess these people. You have to take into account their experiences and their perspectives. And this is what we do in our, as we're marketing the thing, we'd say, it's interview them and include them for their perspectives and their experiences, not just what did they learn in the last 2 years of coding or something like that. This is super important. And a key thing, and this is perhaps unique to Microsoft, is our employee badge. Every single employee badge says, our mission as a company, empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Well, with a mission statement like that, that gives me license to say, well, how are you going to empower everyone on the planet if you don't have empathy for everyone on the planet, or even half the planet? You need experiences of all these different perspectives to gain that empathy so that you can empower them, right? Therefore, you will hire these people, right?
Right.
Now, lucky
was that a tough dialogue?
It was
it would be a different dialogue, right? It's a different
dialogue, and it was new because that mission was new at the time that we started. 2015 is when we started. So it was a new mission statement.
Got you.
So there wasn't already an calcified perspective of what that meant.
I got you. You just defined it. You defined it.
So we defined part of it. I mean, Satya Nadella, the CEO, is the one who laid it out. And he's been spending all this time saying, well, this is what it means, right? So every one of us as employees can say, well, this is what I think it means.
Got you.
And everyone else can go, yeah, okay, that sounds good too.
I'm gonna go with that.
I'm gonna go with that.
Right.
So we had detractors and we had supporters.
Sure.
We had more supporters than detractors, and we had a clever way of getting it funded so that it wasn't easily killed off. Because if you've ever done any diversity initiatives in any large company, you know that they get killed off.
Gotcha.
And as soon as the attention goes somewhere else, they're just gone.
That's right. Right.
It's like, we did our bit. No one's looking now. Back to the way it was.
Gotcha. Yeah. It's easy. It's easy to do the old thing, right, and go back there.
let's just head on back to Stanford and MIT and we're good.
That's right. The bus doesn't go to Howard no more.
Yeah, sorry. We'll see you in 10 more years.
Right. What the other thing I find really interesting about your story is that it's not like you're an HR. You're not responsible for hiring. You kind of force the issue there.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. The way that our company works is not, HR is not responsible for hiring. It's actually, well, I shouldn't say it that way. They put a lot of structures in place. That is where recruiting lives. But at the end of the day, it's the hiring managers who really have the responsibility for doing the hiring.
Right.
You know what I mean? So HR and recruiting can bring you candidates, but the hiring manager is the one that you actually have to influence, because they can say, nope. There's my MIT grad,
Right.
So you have to get the hiring manager, because they're the one that makes the final hiring decision. Recruiting does not.
Gotcha.
Right? It's the hiring manager that makes the actual decision. So you have to convince those people that they should look at talent differently, right? Now, other companies might be different. Other companies that might be completely HR and recruiting does it.
Sure.
So that's why we started our effort from the engineering team, not from HR, because if you started in HR, the engineering team could go, yeah, no thanks.
Got you.
But if you're in engineering and I'm an engineer and I have street cred as an engineer and an engineering manager, they can't ignore me, right? With HR, they can say, you don't know what you're talking, you don't know what we really need.
Got you.
And I can say, yes, I do. I've shipped for 20 years, yo. Yep. I know what you need. You can't blow that smoke on me.
Right.
So, they couldn't ignore me. And they have a favorable relationship with all these engineering managers. They're like, all right, he got us.
Understood.
So, yeah, it was good.
So is there a sense of, as a Black manager and a Black in a leadership role, was there a sense of, I don't know, responsibility or obligation that you make this shift? Like, did you feel that strongly to push in that direction?
Yeah, there's a story I tell often is about a trip I took to Detroit one time, and I was in the museum. I have to get this right. I'll have to go back and look, but it's the museum there of science and industry or something like that. And there was this train car, they have a train car and they've got a Black porter standing out front. It's a mannequin, of a Black porter. And I know the significance of Black porters in train cars. It's a fairly, as close as we as Black people got to respect was being a porter on a train car, right? Mm-hmm. Because they allowed us in there amongst them to serve them. Yes, sir, may I take your ticket, please? May I take your order? Whatever. So it's a fairly respected position. So he was just standing there, kind of not with a regal air, but with it just looked like he had self-respect, And I looked at that mannequin, and at the time I said, I had this upwelling of feeling. I was just like, I'm going to do right by you, right? Because I'm looking at him and what I'm seeing, and the porter was probably in the 1920s, 30s, 40s, that time frame. Uh-huh. But what I'm seeing when I'm looking at him, I'm looking at the train car, and the whole scene is the 400 years of Black history up to that point. Right. And what Blacks have endured so that we could be the porter, right? Now, here I am, not apex predator, but I'm at the top of my career as the Black guy. I'm now the porter. So people looking back from 20 years in the future will look back on me and say, thank you for what you did. You allowed us to now stand on your shoulders so we can go further. So I had this sense, right? And I actually saw that porter, it was like 20 years ago. So it kind of went in the background. And then when I got this opportunity, and this is after much growth, at like 17 years at Microsoft, when I started Leap, I just thought, okay, I get paid enough. Yep. I'm no multimillionaire, or I'm not a billionaire, but so what? When is it time to start paying back? Right. And I didn't feel comfortable with the history of my own family and our people in this country with just stepping off the stage and saying, well, I got mine. I'm headed to the beach now. Good luck. You know, it's like, Mama wouldn't like that. Right. So got it. Why don't I do my part to help out?
Yep.
And when you think about what Black folks have endured, I'm not on the whooping post. Sure. I'm not out in the fields. I'm not being run down by the police, you know?
Yep.
What am I? I'm comfortable. So get up off your chair, right, and put a little skin in the game,
right,
and put your hand out and leverage all that you've experienced and the obligation. And so that's all the responsibility. And then I had a conversation with my brother, and he's like, yeah, it's not that you should or should not do this. You must do this. And it's like, yes, I must do this. And I even had my own manager go like, you're no longer an engineer. It's like, yeah, whatever. I've been programming since I was 12. You're not going to tell me who I am. I'm going to help these people, you know, and I'm not going to be any of the lesser for it. And in fact, I'm going to be the greater for it. So Thank you for your feedback. This is what I'm doing.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What do I have to lose? My job? Sure. Okay, whatever. I'm marketable, yo.
No, well, but here's the thing. I think, William, and commend you for stepping out that way, and in keeping with the show, to be audacious enough and bold enough to be able to make this type of a step, because
we got to, right?
But not everyone's doing that. Right?
Yeah, it's hard. I'm saying it like, oh, it's so easy. I'm getting paid anyway. It's like, not everyone is.
Right.
So yeah, there's some risk there.
For sure. And and it's not always an easy thing. And you have to step out and sort of be different than everyone else. And in that, especially in the corporate world, there has to be an acceptance that there's something wrong with the status quo. And that's not always easy for people to say it, right? And do and go, yeah, well, we want to be on the right side of right. And so we don't want to be the ones going, yeah, it's flawed, it's broken, let's do something about it. So it's far easier to discount it and say, no, we're fine.
Yeah, and can I give you another story that's kind of related to it, and also equally audacious, I think. After Leap was already established, and now Leap has turned into a corporate thing. It's owned by HR, and it's nationally accredited, and federally accredited, all these wonderful things. And there's a whole team of people that run that now. Yeah. And I am now the godfather of Leap, as they say. I'm not in the day-to-day, but I still get the respect.
Nice.
But somewhere along the line, I think it was around 2018, I guess it was 2017, 18. I had a young African come up to me, and I was introduced to him, a Nigerian at Microsoft. And he's like, man, I've been trying to get us, in Africa. We want to do some engineering in Africa. And we hired a handful of African engineers every year. Yep. So they're there. Not as much as we have of lots of other things, but there's some Africans. I don't mean African Americans, like they're from Africa directly.
Yep.
And they're like, they've been trying to work on this for years and not quite getting there. And I went, all right, well, the problem is you need to just hire some engineers. Stop asking for permission to hire engineers. Stop asking for headcount. I've got money. Let's go hire some people. And the way we got there was we said, okay, back to the badge. Badge says empower every person on the planet to achieve more. Well, there's 1.2 billion people in Africa, the continent.
Yes.
A third of the landmass of the planet.
Yes.
Right? And we have zero engineering there. And it struck me. You see a map of the globe and you see all these pins in it of where engineering is happening. And it's like, Africa is literally the heart of darkness in that respect. There's not a single pin. Right. And it's like, what's wrong with this picture? Literally. Yep. There's no pins here.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So we went and said, okay, we're going to do engineering here. How do you justify it? It's like, because there's talent. Right. And why it says here on the badge that we want to empower everyone. How can you do that when you're ignoring 1.2 billion of them?
It's true.
Let's go. And I'm going to show you how. I'm going to hire people. We're going to set the wages. We're going to show that it's possible. We're going to do some work that's groundbreaking. And I'm just going to show you, right? And we did that. And then here comes the cavalry, right? It's like, yeah, Windows is now. We got it from here, son. You know, Windows is there. Our identity team's there. Office is there. Now we're up to a few hundred individuals between Kenya and Nigeria. And now for our company, it's like Africa. Yeah, that's the future, you know, because there's all these young people in Africa. It's like we're all aging out. So, you know, their average age is like 19. You know, they're in fintech, they're in agribusiness, they're in all sorts of stuff. And they're young and they're smart and they're eager. And, you know, it's like, yeah, you're welcome.
I get it. I
right.
get it.
And now we're off to the Caribbean because did you know there are 40 million Black folks out there? You know, so
no, it's amazing.
Just keep doing stuff like that.
That's
right?
amazing. William, give me an idea of the numbers this program has helped since 2015, right? That's when it started, 2015. So give me an idea of the numbers. And also too, you talked about women and visible minorities. The background of some of these people, like, would they normally have this opportunity if it wasn't for this program?
Oh, let's start there. Absolutely not. They would not be able to find their way into a place like Microsoft, most of them. And it's and I'm not saying anything bad about their skills. What I'm talking about is the mechanisms we use to hire people. Most of the hiring at the entry level comes through college. If you didn't intern with us, it's really hard for us to know who you are. So if you went to a school that's off the beaten path, you didn't intern with us, we don't know who you are, you're probably not getting hired. Right. You'll go to somewhere else. Now, that's not to say they wouldn't get in somewhere else. They just wouldn't get into Microsoft because this is our process, right?
Sure. Yep.
We do hire some industry, but that's, you've got 10 years experience and we found you because you're at some other company, you did an acquisition and whatever.
Sure. And, and I would imagine that Microsoft's process is very similar to other companies as well.
We're all the same. I mean, perhaps someone does it slightly better, slightly worse, but we're all kind of the same.
Sure.
Right. So they didn't have a ready-made path. And you're also going after, and this will put in stark relief, moms returning to work. They already have a CS degree from MIT, you know, and they had a career. They were already in tech, but they took a break. They're raising the kids. They're out for 7 years. They haven't been in the mix. They submit their resume and it's like,
changed. A lot's changed.
Into the circular file. So you're providing those kinds of people an avenue that they normally wouldn't have. You got to have a mechanism whereby they can apprentice, essentially, right? They need that same experience that the college hires get, an internship, which gives us a chance to look at them for 3 months, you know, before we make an offer. So they needed that opportunity, and that's what the LEAP program provides to them, right?
Gotcha.
And you've got career switchers, and you've got, it's like, okay, someone has a PhD in astrophysics, chemistry, and in engineering. You're going to tell me they can't program?
Right.
Because they don't have a CS degree? Come on. So it gives an opportunity to people like that who don't have the standard set of things that you expect. Right. And the career switches and all that sort of stuff. Now you had asked, there was the other part of that question.
The numbers, like how many people.
The numbers.
Because I think any kind of initiative like this, you know, it's going to fall back to, well, how many people have really been impacted by this thing?
Yeah, I'd say at this point it's a few thousand, and I don't mean like 10 or 20,000, but you know, small numbers of thousands, which is pretty good, because what we were trying to do in jumpstarting all of this is to increase the size of the pie, right? It's one thing to try to recruit women and minorities from other companies because they're already in the pie. All you're doing is shuffling around, you know, between us. The key is to say, no, here's a new pie slice. Right. And if you don't get employed by us, you'll get employed by Amazon. If not them, by Google or Facebook, and if not in any of those, then the rest of the tech community. So it's helpful in that it's increasing the size of the pie. When we started the program, companies like us were patting ourselves on the back for having initiatives where it's like, we brought in 10 women. Wow. A company of 40,000, you brought in 10 women,
Okay.
and I laugh at us for even bringing in hundreds, but it's more than 10.
Mm-hmm.
And now the industry is starting to emulate what we've done.
Good.
Amazon even has a program called Leap.
Wow.
Which is very similar to what we've done, which is good, because if we all do a leap, then that means we're employing thousands more that we wouldn't have employed any otherwise. Right.
I can see detractors who weren't happy about it talking, maybe thinking that, opportunities are being taken from others to give to these individuals. Have you experienced that?
Not really at all.
Okay.
I mean, the reality is, in a company like a Microsoft, you always have literally thousands of open positions.
Wow.
So even if you filled them all with women and minorities, next year there's going to be thousands more, and so you're not really. It's like, come on, that's narrow that's a cerebral exercise, but it doesn't match reality.
Gotcha.
Right. The reality is there's plenty of jobs. And if you think of tech in general, everything is tech, right? I mean, who thought that taxis were high tech? But look at Uber. They employ thousands of people. Right. Just taxis.
Well, I think that goes back to the shift that we talked initially. We sort of talked about the shifts in technology in general. But now, you have specific industries that have also seen shifts and have also changed. And now you want individuals to respond or be there to be able to respond to these changes, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, now you got a company like Amazon, who is largely, their biggest chunk of jobs is warehouse jobs. And you could say, okay, well, warehouse jobs, what's tech about that? Well, someone had to make the robots that run around the floors. And they're probably one of the most high-tech logistics companies in the world, right? They have a whole cloud service to service the robotics and all the rest of the stuff that they do, and they so happen to make money off that too. Gotcha. But when you think of logistics support, that is rapidly becoming about machine learning and robotics and automation, and it's just more tech jobs. Right. So I don't buy that whole thing of like, oh, you're taking my job. I was thinking, what do you mean your job? It's not your job by default.
No, I get it. I know. And I ask because I wonder if look, I totally recognize that we certainly have a far way to go. We're not there. But certainly those slow progress steps forward are moving in that right direction. But you are going to have, people that want to maybe throw pebbles on the pathway and tell
absolutely. Yeah, there's plenty of people that throw pebbles on the paths, and it's anything from the hey, that's not fair, you're discriminating against me. I've heard that directly.
Sure.
To they don't meet the bar,
right?
The elusive bar.
They only got it because, right?
They only got it because, and there's the kind of stuff that we've heard all our lives as Black individuals. I mean, I certainly heard it during school days, and the refrain from our parents of "you're going to have to work twice as hard to get half as much."
Sure.
Right. So I look at people who are in a more advantaged position who might have these complaints, and I just think, I know I'm here because I've worked twice as hard as everybody else. Why are you here?
Yes.
How did you get here?
Yes.
Right. That's what I think. Yeah. And I have a white friend who is, we talk about this all the time, and he was there when I was creating Leap and going into Africa and all the rest. And he's just like, okay, you're brilliant. And he said, it's hard for me as a white guy to get a job in Microsoft because of this, not quota, because of this equality that we're trying to do in hiring, right? It's like, oh, we want to have a mixed slate and blah, blah, blah. And what I said to him was, welcome to being Black, and he gets it.
Experience. Yeah.
It's like, he gets it. He's like, yeah, I get it. I'm feeling it.
Gotcha. Now, LEAP stands for, as an acronym, right? What does it?
Oh, well, you got to understand with LEAP, when LEAP was first created back in India, it was Leap Engineering Acceleration Program. So it was one of those, self-referential acronyms. Now that it's in HR, it doesn't mean anything. It is the Microsoft Leap apprenticeship program, because we don't do acronyms.
Gotcha.
Right.
Gotcha.
Now that it's all HR correct, it's like, the acronym doesn't mean anything, but that's what it stood for originally.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, listen, William, I think it's really cool. The ability to make the kind of differences that you spearheaded, and give you a lot of credit and kudos for a couple of things. First off, recognizing the issue and taking action. As we talked earlier, taking action. People may recognize it, but you still got to do something about it. And that, and to be able to do something about it. And as we said earlier, doesn't always happen. So kudos to you for actually following through.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah, and I appreciate you sharing. What's next for you yourself or Leap? Is Leap sounds like it's on its own, running as its own entity? Yeah. Is there? And so you've kind of birthed it, and you've off to do something else. So what's next for you?
For the last couple of years, I've actually been working within Azure to just make Azure better internally for employees in general, and it has to do with how we do learning and how we do mentoring and all this other sort of stuff. But in general, my mission is around this thing that I call Tequity, which is getting people an equity share of technology, so that we get rich as everyone else gets rich. And I'll make this one observation just to illustrate it. There's the saying, rising tide lifts all boats, right?
Yeah.
Well, not everyone has a boat.
Good point.
So those people are drowning. So my mission going forward, and maybe this takes me to the end of my life, is to help people make those boats, and you do that by getting an equity share of the wealth that's being generated in technology today. The top billionaires today are all tech billionaires, most of them. Right. You look at the top 10, it's like tech, okay, telephonics, but tech. Sure. Yeah. So that's my thing going forward. Whether it's with Microsoft, outside Microsoft, my mission is Tequity, right? Awesome. I want you to become rich. That's my mission.
Well, it's an amazing one. I mean, for a lot of people, they could look at what you've done up to this point and go, "Wow, that's a life's work." And to create,
just getting started, man.
Right? And that's exactly it. There's still lots to do, and lots of people to help and bring along in that pathway. And as you said earlier, making that pie as big as possible so everybody could eat.
Yeah, exactly. Let's create more pie. Let's create more tables. Don't worry about. You don't want to see that table. Create your own table. Awesome. We got it going on. We can do this. So that's my mission.
Awesome. So for anyone listening that's want to learn more about you or connect with you, where can we send our listeners?
Just recently put up a site, william-a-adams.com. Okay. And that's starting to populate with here's my Twitter handle, here's previous writings, and all that sort of stuff.
Nice.
But that'll be it.
Got you. Well, I encourage listeners to check you out and follow along. And William, I really appreciated you sharing today. I think again, what you created and what you started is phenomenal. And I guess there's a sense of pride for you to kind of step back and still see it flourish and know that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's like having children, right? And I've had children. It's like you're not them. Mm-hmm. All you can do is your best to raise them and then send them on their path and admire what they do in life, right? And it's like that. It's like, I helped birth that thing, and there it is, and it's making a difference, and that's good.
Amazing, right? Amazing. Well, congratulations, without question. You've done a phenomenal job. All the best, and thanks for being here today.
Oh, well, thanks for having me. Really, it's my pleasure, right?
There we go. Well, it works both ways. How's that? Let's be mutual thankful to one another.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
All right, William. Be well. Take care.
Okay. Bye.
Back we are here on the Audacious Living Podcast. And I need to thank William so much, not only for just being here with me on the Audacious Living Podcast and sharing your story, but also for your work. It's absolutely outstanding. And the difference that you're making in the lives of others is extremely commendable. And really, Richard, you should be so proud of your efforts because it's a big, big deal. And I think it's so awesome. I also think it's amazing that you're not only making a difference for those individuals, but their families as well. It's having a generational impact, again, for those opportunities that they normally wouldn't have a chance or be privy to. You've now made a pathway, and that's just phenomenal. You know, William left us with so much to think about, but if there's just one thing that I take from my conversation with him, it would be this. There's great value in looking outside the formal education and recognizing the personal strengths that others bring to the table. What people oftentimes lack is opportunity. And when we look at the totality of an individual, we give others a chance to put all their strengths on display and give them that much needed opportunity. In order to do this, we require empathy, compassion, and understanding. Experiences and perspectives matter. And when you take all of these things into account as part of your assessment process, you're providing that much needed opportunity and giving that chance all of us can benefit from. That is audacious. Hey, listen, if you haven't registered for email notifications of the podcast, please know that you can do so simply by heading over to bestaudaciouslife.com. All you've got to do is enter in your email address and you will be immediately alerted every time there's new content that comes out. You know, we've reached the end of another edition of the Audacious Living Podcast, and I have to send out, as always, a thanks to our amazing listeners and those lovers of audaciousness. Your support is tremendous, it's outstanding, it's appreciated, and I encourage it to keep on going, and you continue to do your part, and we will do ours here on the podcast. Until next time, stay safe, be kind, show love to one another, and be audacious.
You've been listening to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by Audley Stevenson. If you enjoyed what you heard, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Until next time, be audacious.